Hi guys, Jeff here from Gear Audio. I'm going to take you through some WaveTool stuff. I just have a few slides just to run through the basic concept, and then we'll build up a little show file like Jason did. WaveTool is it's an RF monitoring solution for any audio tech, really. A lot of times it will get used by an A2 or an assistant of any kind, but basically it's for anybody that's got more than a few channels of wireless in a live or a theater show. Basically, it allows us to do real-time monitoring of our audio and RF statistics for up to 128 channels. One cool thing that we can do as well that kind of adds an extra layer is we can actually stream audio and data to a phone or an iPad. So we can be mobile and get around and listen to that audio. The guys have actually developed a snap, crackle, and pop algorithm. So they've figured out a way to detect a high transient response for, a mic going bad or a cable getting pinched or something like that, and that comes up as a detection and it gets logged in the software. And recently they've added something called an instant replay that lets you go back in time to see what happened or what led up to an audio event happening so that you can better troubleshoot it. And they just added audio to that as well. So not only can you look at the statistics, but you can look at you can actually listen to the audio and you can export it. One of the coolest things is that it's totally brand agnostic, so you can use it with anybody's wireless stuff. So we've got some Shure stuff here today, but you can use it with basically anything that's had a network jack on it over the last 5 or 10 years. And just specifically, it's not a replacement for Wireless Workbench. It's kind of like a nice add-on to it. So you'll do your RF scanning and things like that with Wireless Workbench, and then use a WaveTool for the audio portion of it. So the way it works is typically I'll have an audio source, and you'll feed that audio into a Mac. That's the requirement, is it has to be done on a Mac. That can be then hooked up to a local network, and basically we can stream. We create a host computer, this guy, the main computer, and then any of the audio and the statistical data can be streamed over the wireless link to a phone or an iPad or even other Mac computers too. And in my case today, my little example that I'm going to show you is something. I've got 2 channels of the Shure ULXD here, and I've also got some audio playing back off of my laptop, specifically using something called Loopback, which just lets you play out and send right back into yourself for audio, basically. But in a normal set, we might have a whole bunch of Shure or Sennheiser receivers, and then we might flip in a MADI rack or something like that. So we can handle multiple sources on the Mac and feed them all in together. So in some cases, you might have Dante from a Shure system, and we're Digico fans here, so we might feed in an SD rack with a UB MADI right into to the Mac or the Mac Mini. So kind of a neat thing. So I'm going to flip back over here and just start up WaveTool. One of the things that I've done here, just as a precursor to this, is one of the cool things about Mac that you may not know is that you can create something called an aggregate audio device in the audio devices in the audio MIDI setup. And so this basically shows me all of the audio devices that the Mac can see. And what I have here is I've got Dante Virtual Sound Card running to give us our audio from the Shure system. I have my Loopback program that I mentioned, which is just a separate audio device. And in order to format this in a way that works for WaveTool, we can basically put these two together and create an aggregate device by checking these 2 boxes here. So it allows you to create one device by checking multiples of that. So in this case here, I'm feeding 20 channels in from Loopback, and then I'm feeding 2 Dante channels in. So WaveTool will have access to these 22 channels of audio that I've set up for it. And they're set up at 48K. So the only requirement is that the input and the output is the same sample rate. So I'm just going to make sure these guys are both at 48K, and then I can get started. Oops. So when you first start up, it asks you what your input device is going to be, and that's going to be that Aggregate audio device that I just made up. But it can be any singular device as well too, as you can see here. And then my output is just going to be my my MacBook Pro speakers. If I send audio to the HDMI, will you hear that on the video, or no? I think so, no. It's not a problem. I can send audio, or I'll just play it back, and it'll probably get picked up with my mic. So that's fine. So we can confirm that, and then what it does is it starts with just one channel set up like that. So what I can do now is under the Edit menu, I can bring up my channel I/O list here, and this allows me to basically add the channels that I would do in a normal setup. So I can add one by one using the add function, or I can add many here. So I'm going to add 21 channels. So that'll add 21 to the one that I've got, and I should have 22 here. Great. So this gives you the ability to name the channels down the left here. This gives you the ability to select the actual route that channel is on the sound card. So that Aggregate audio device that I selected has the 22 channels that I mentioned, and they show up here. And then this allows me to set up my wireless devices here as well. So this is where you would set up what the actual wireless system is, and you can do every single one of those per channel. So under the drop down here, we have a virtual system, and then we have 2 channels, which happen to be for this guy here. So this has retained some previous settings, so I can see the 2 ULXD channels here. So I'll pick one just for now for fun. And then we have something called players, and in a live theater show, a lot of times you'll have a certain story member that might be played by a character or by an actor, but it might be played by different people. And this is where you can specify, for this particular channel, who is that player, who is the actor that's playing this role today. So in certain cases, I've got some audio tracks from the Rankin, so I'm going to pick Jimmy to be the player in that case. And then the rest of the stuff here is slightly less important, but that snap, crackle, and pop algorithm, this allows you to check whether or not you want that to be engaged. Do you want the RF warnings to show up? And we can pan and gain up and down the signals here as well. So if we've got something that's just overbearing for somebody monitoring it, you can gain it down, all that kind of stuff. And then there's 2 panels that we can select between. So we have an A panel and a B panel, and each one of these can have up to 64 channels showing. And you can decide which one that you want shown on. And then we have the ability to decide whether we want the instant replay function as well, so to be able to listen back to the audio and get us that 5 minutes of history. We can do that there. So I'm just going to do these channels for now, and I'll press the close button. So that's added those 22 channels for me, and you can see that I'm getting some data on these guys here. So a few of the channels, and not all of them. And these channels are, of course, I have 20 channels coming in from the Rankin family, and then I have the 2 wireless channels at the very end there. So this would actually be my audio here from the wireless mic coming in on channel 1, and then the handheld that you guys got over there should be channel 2. If you fire that on, we should see some audio. Yep, there we go. Check, check, check. Great. So. So that's a very basic and an easy setting. So you'll notice here the green stuff obviously is the audio, and the amber line is the RF data as well. So for the channel that I have going here, you'll notice this guy, since this was set up for channel 1 of this here, it's showing the RF statistics. It's telling me that this is using antenna A, and it's got approximately just over 5.5 hours of battery life left, and the RF strength is quite high. So that's kind of cool. The neat thing is, if I just turn up my volume, I'm not sure if you'll hear this. So I've I basically can solo a channel here, and you might be able to hear that. It's picking up the speech. So this gives me the ability to pick any of those 22 channels and listen to them in real time, and and see how they sound. Yeah, can you turn that on again and give me a nice little crack on the top of it? Yeah, let's see if we can get the SCP algorithm. There we go, perfect. So as you can see here, we have this little red background show up. So that's showing an artifact of the audio that probably shouldn't be there, like a snap or a drop or something like that. So it's detecting those peaks and giving us an indication that we can then reset, which is pretty cool. So there's thresholds and variables that you can set based on this to see how tight you want them to be, how loose the settings are, and all that kind of stuff. But it's pretty accurate. If you take a microphone and unplug it in the middle of a run or something like that, you'll see that pop up. One of the things you'll notice is that for my first channel here, I've got a picture of Jimmy Rankin. So one of the neat things you can do is you can actually put in for those players that we set up. You can put in pictures for all the actors too. So that's one of the neat things that you can get going too. So as far as the wireless stuff goes, under the Edit menu, there's a wireless IP list here, and this is where you would go to set up your wireless devices. So this kind of took some previous settings that I had here, but to add a new unit here, it's just a matter of adding a line, and this device's IP is 10.0.0.121, and it's set up as a Shure ULXD. But you can see from the list here, there's quite a few options here available, pretty much any of the most common items. So these guys are very good about grabbing hold of any of the new products and getting it in for testing, making sure it works, and then adding it into the software. And Shure and Sennheiser, of course, are very compliant because they, of course, want their stuff to be in here so everybody can use it. So that's a nice thing as well. So so by typing this in, it'll run a little ping test to check and make sure that the device is actually there, and it is in this case. And then it's basically ready to use. So that when I go back to the edit section here, I can then pick another channel here, and I can pick channel 2 for the wireless device. So in the case of the Shure stuff, it is possible, not that you would ever want to do this, but it is possible to have your audio on a channel and have your statistics coming in on a different channel. So right now these audio channels are coming in on one channel, but because they're on Dante, I have the statistics on another. So I'm just going to pick these guys, these players here, so that we can see a bit more. Oops. Say that one's cookie. So I've created a few from a past setup here, and I believe this is guitar 1, guitar 2. So as you put these players in, then you get them to show up here with their backgrounds and all this kind of stuff. So I can click on any of these guys, and there's actually 3 guitars in this one, and get their live audio. So that's one of the neat things with it, and so this is something that in this case would be set up at if it's just a single user front of house, but a lot of times be at the monitor position. And from here, we can have multiple laptops running, or one of the neat things with the iOS device is I can have WaveTool running here as a remote, and I don't know how well you can see that, but as soon as I open the app, I'm basically getting the same statistics and everything that I saw on the screen here on here. So I can actually click on any of these channels here and look at it. So I can actually turn on a streaming function, and it will stream the audio live from the laptop through the network over to the phone here, and start playing that. I'll try to do something that actually has some audio here. You can hear that? Great. So now, as an A2 or something like that, I could be walking around checking people's wireless mics or doing mic checks and things like that using an iPhone or an iOS device. So that's a very, very handy function and streaming across the Wi-Fi system. It's there is a little bit of latency, of course, but it's only a couple of milliseconds, so it's quite usable on stage. And for testing this kind of stuff, it's very usable and very realistic.
If I can jump in too, Jeff, just a real-time example of how that works really well. When we did Enrique on the first night, the percussion player kept smacking the 4099 that was on the bongo. Like he kept brushing against it.
Yeah.
And so Eddie, and a lot of the guys watching are familiar with Eddie Kaipo. He's the monitor guy. He kept hearing this, and he thought it was interference because it just sounded like something go across the microphone, right?
Yeah.
And I was pretty sure it wasn't because I was pretty confident in my coordination skills. But to be able to actually solo it and go back in the timeline and listen to it on WaveTool is super handy because you could narrow down what it was. Like I was able to go back to him and say, no, man, like he's brushing against it. He had it set up in a place where I guess his body was rubbing against the microphone. So instead of jumping to panic and having to re-coordinate a whole bunch of frequencies, having that ability. Also in a church environment, if you've got WaveTool and you've got a whole bunch of vocal mics and A2, like you said, wants to go check that before the service starts, you don't necessarily have to have somebody at a console following through and soloing it in your ears. You could just go do that because it streams the audio to a mobile phone or an iPad, which is pretty cool.
I mean, here in Canada, a lot of I've heard this a lot from people that will say, I don't have time. I don't have time to set this up. I don't have an A2. It's just me in a lot of cases. And the question gets asked, well, how long does it take to set this up? And it's you guys watched me set it up in a couple of minutes. This isn't a complete setup by any means, but I'm at a point now where I've got channels, I've got a few pictures in there, I've got data, and I've got the streaming function going on here. I can get out and walk around. And if it's just you using it, you could have this set up in a situation at front of house, for example, and then you can grab your phone, go backstage, do it yourself, check the audio, check 1 2, listen to it, and then go back to front of house. So you can use this as a tool for yourself, which is pretty handy.
There's another question here. Johan wants to know, is there a device connection limit? Like, is there a maximum number of devices that you can connect to the WaveTool?
There is, yeah. We can have up to 5 remotes available. So we can have our main and 5.
So that's in terms of like iPads or phones.
Yeah,
but
or
in terms of
computers.
actual wireless like channels, is there a channel limit?
There is. It's depends on what you buy. So there's different bundles. They range from 32 channels, 64, right up to 128. So I'd say at the max you could do in one instance would be 128 channels.
And if you're responsible for more than 128 channels of RF, you might need a therapist.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah,
at least another RF tech.
There's been a few situations over in London on the West End and stuff where they have like 400 channels of audio, but they've got it segregated over a couple of different systems that different people are. You get to the point exactly where one person just can't do it themselves. So, yeah. You mentioned the instant replay thing. That's kind of a neat option here. So if you click on any of the particular guys with the zoom tool here selected, I'll click on this one here because it's got a bit more information. We can see the statistics from her audio over the last little bit, and you can actually click at any point in time and listen to that audio and go back and try to find that. So you could find the click or the pop, isolate it, listen to it a couple of times. You can even export the audio as well too, put it off to a file and have a look at it a little closer. But this gives you nice telemetry to see exactly what's going on that stuff. So you'll see the RF statistics as well too, especially in this case here because we've got this one turned on. So you'll see a correlation between the RF statistics. If it is an RF hit, obviously you'll see that show up. If it's just audio, like you mentioned, you'll just see a nice click or a a snap or something like that there. So that's very handy thing. So yeah, I'm just going to flip to a file that I had made up earlier here. That's got a bit more stuff in it. It's kind of not much different, but I've added a bit more. One of the things you can do as well is, like any theater show, you can create snapshots and you can group users together. So I've created a couple of snapshots here, and I've grouped the Rankin family singers into a group, so I can highlight all of them one time and listen to them, or I can listen to the guitars and stuff like that, or the mandolins, or in my case, my two wireless things, so you can hear myself coming back through, which is kind of funny. So yeah.
Hey.
Whoops.
You can hear
there
me
we go.
coming through. It's streaming through.
I can.
Your
Yeah.
computer.
Check.
1, 2.
There it is.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So you can see how, this is the latency that's coming through. It's very low. He sounds like he's in real time, which is great. So, yeah, under the edit menu here, there's a groups and snapshots function here where basically we can there's a viewing mode and a basically just a checking mode, and then there's an edit mode as well too, where you can actually make adjustments. But it's as simple as each one of these are snapshots here, different scenes. And then we have the ability to basically take all the inputs here and put them into different groups. So these are the groups that I was using. But the key to this is like in a theater show with control groups, where theater mixers will typically mix on VCAs. You want that group to be different depending on what snapshot you're on, because this scene is with these folks, and these people are important. In the next scene, it's a different group of people. So you can have each of those change by different snapshot and by different scene. And you can actually, in these cases as well, you can have them be triggered by MIDI. So you can learn the MIDI commands related to these, or one of the recent additions was adding OSC commands. So if you're using a Digico console, an S series or an SD series, you can actually have snapshots on the console fire snapshots in WaveTool as well. So that's a very cool thing. So I think it's anytime you have more than just a couple of audio channels, any wireless stuff going on, I think it's well worth it to have. So, I mean, even in this quick glance, I can see right away that I got a few interesting things going on. I mean, this guy's good here. I can see there's low RF here because this handheld mic that Dav had was turned on at one point while the software was on, and it's no longer. And there it is; it's back again. So we go from low RF to something there. So we can see that stuff going on as it is. So.
And I think the cool thing too, Jeff, is the fact that it shows the RF alongside the audio. So that was what I was able to use to narrow down the fact that the sound that we were hearing on the Enrique show wasn't in fact a drop in RF. Yep. Because you saw the RF staying steady. Yep. While the audio was moving, right? So exactly. The RF line stays steady means it's connected. If it drops connection, like when you turn it off, you'll see it drop, right? So having a visual representation of that is incredibly helpful. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes people, again, will say that they don't have time for this kind of stuff, but it's one of those things where, it's never a problem until it's a problem. And, just having this sitting off in the background and not doing anything, you might look at it once in a while, but having it there kind of as an insurance policy that you can go back and quickly divert over to have a look at something and pinpoint that problem way quicker than you would anywhere else is a huge benefit. So even if it's only yourself.